Hi folks, Justin.Hoffman here for Justin.Hoffman Outdoors. Today I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about shed hunting. For those that don't know what shed hunting is, every season a white-tailed deer buck will lose its antlers. Once they drop, they're called sheds, hence shed hunting. The following year, the fall time, he'll regrow a new set of antlers for the rut and mating season. Now, shed hunting is a really fun hobby. Anyone can be involved. It's easy, it's low cost. Friends can be involved, children, family, spouses. It doesn't really matter. Here's a couple examples of sheds. This one was just found 3 days ago. Freshly dropped. It's a small little 4-pointer. This one was found a week earlier. Quite an interesting one. Both of these are freshly dropped. Now, in terms of when antlers will fall, it often depends on where in North America you live. I'm out in Eastern Ontario, in the Ottawa area, and for this area, generally mid-December is an early drop. They can keep falling in January, February, up to March. So there's a little bit of science behind it. Healthier deer generally drop them first. Bigger bucks will drop them first. Often depends on the weather, the mating season, and how healthy the deer is. So anyways, there's a couple examples of sheds and what you're looking for. Now, as you can see, we've got some snow here right now. It actually rained a couple days ago. It's actually January 16th, 2013 today. So the rain actually packed down some of the snow, making these a little bit easier to find. As you can see, if you were to look for one, if it's actually just dropped, then it's fairly easy to find. Now, if it dropped before the snow, or if you get a snow after the fact, it's going to be a little bit tougher. That's why a lot of people will actually start their shed hunting come springtime in late February, March, April. The only problem with waiting later in the year is a lot of the animals that live in the forest will start chewing on these things for the calcium. So mice, squirrels, porcupines, and they can make quick work of a drop shed. That's why I like to come out early in the season, and there might not be as many to find then, but you'll find fresh ones that have had no chew marks on them whatsoever. So follow along on some of these tips. I'm going to give some of my tactics that I use to find more sheds each season, and hopefully you can find some this year and have a really great time with this hobby. So one of my favorite spots to look for when I'm looking for sheds is if you can find any sort of a creek. What we've got here is a small little stream. What happens here is deer will follow a certain trail. They'll always use the same trail each day to either go to their bedding spot or their feeding spot. So deer will come along this trail and they have to jump over any sort of water they come to. What that ends up doing is when they land on the other side, it will often jolt their antlers and cause them to fall off. So what I like to do is, if I find a really good spot that's holding a lot of bucks, is search up and down these creeks, streams, and oftentimes you'll find sheds either right in the creek or just on the other side where they've landed on the trail. Another great spot to key in on when shed hunting is a tree line. So what I have behind me here is a tree line that actually works its way right to a major highway down in the back. Behind me on this side is a massive field, which in the fall, which I've seen when I photograph deer, is they flood into this field to feed. A lot of deer in the wintertime will work along a trail. They'll have a set trail that goes right down a tree line. So if you concentrate on tree line this way, and work each side of the field, you're going to get more antlers. Another great tip is I like to use a GPS when I'm working this area. So what I have here is an iPhone, and I use an app by Navionics called Hike and Bike. It lets me graph out while I'm moving my exact routes. So I can use a grid pattern while I go up and down this field and along the tree line and make sure I cut out every area that I want to cover. Great little tip. Costs $1.99 I think on iTunes, and it's invaluable when you're looking for sheds. Another good spot to keep an eye out for is fence lines. So what we have right here is quite a low fence, and actually you wouldn't think that a deer would be able to get underneath there. Now the reason I know one has, first of all, there's a path that comes through here, and this past fall I actually followed a nice 10-pointer and watched him crawl underneath this. Now, come shed hunting time, it's important to look for these areas because what will end up happening is a big buck will slide his body underneath here, catches antlers on the fence line, and they'll end up getting knocked off. So another great tip, keep an eye out for fence lines like this, and you'll find more sheds. In addition to fence lines with openings underneath them that deer can use, I also like to keep an eye out for fence lines where deer actually jump over them. Now, I'm not sure whether the camera can pick it up, but a deer's actually jumped from this side onto this side. Whether it was a buck, I'm not too sure. But what they'll often do is they'll use these certain trails, they'll come along, and when they come to an obstacle, like a fence such as this, they'll jump over it. Now, as you can see, the fence is a bit lower in this spot than it is further down. So this deer in particular has used this spot to jump over. Again, the jumping motion over any sort of an obstacle, whether it's a fence, whether it's a stump or a fallen tree, once he lands, will actually jolt the antlers and often knock them loose. So what I'll end up doing is I'll work this entire fence line, looking on both sides because you never know which way they're jumping, and just to see whether any antlers have fallen off. So good tip to keep in mind. One of the prime spots to key in on when shed hunting is trails. What deer actually do is, especially come wintertime when the snow is deep and thick, is they'll use the same trail every day, whether it's to go to their bedding area, whether it's to go to their food source. Reason being is it takes less energy to use a well-trampled trail, and they know where each trail leads to, so they're used to it, and generally they know there's no danger if they follow that certain trail. So as you can see here, here's a deer trail that's going right along through this thick forest, and a key thing to key in on is low-hanging branches. So you can see right here, here's the trail, here's a fairly decent branch, only maybe 2 feet above it, a couple more right here. So as you can imagine, if a buck's coming through here, he can't jump over these branches, so he has to duck underneath them, and generally his antlers will make contact with the branches, and what will happen is you'll often find deer sheds directly past these things. So trails are important. Always follow trails. That's one of my best spots I would say to find sheds, and if you can find trails that actually have low hanging branches, brush, thickets, all the better. Deer beds are another prime spot to find antlers. So what you're looking at right now is a deer bed, which either during the daytime a deer will lay down here, generally facing the south or the east to get the most warmth from the sun, and he'll sit here and chew his cud. They also bed up here when it gets cold for warmth with other deer. Now in this actual area there's 4 separate beds, so 4 separate deer have actually bedded up in this one spot. If you can find a lot of beds near high traffic trails, if you think about it, what often will happen is a buck will lay down for the day. Now when he gets up or his head is laying on the ground, he'll actually jar his antlers, and I've actually found a few sheds lying right in a bed. So another key point to keep an eye out for is look for those beds. Now what we have behind me and to my right of me is a wood lot of basically cedar, evergreens, pine trees. These are particularly important to deer come wintertime because what they actually call them is winter yarding. Deer come wintertime when the temperature gets really cold, heavy snow, will actually group together and they'll use these yarding areas to bed down in, to stay protected. There's obviously less snowfall underneath these canopies of trees, and it's also their food source. If you look around me, you see all the little bits of cedar and pine that are on the ground. There's scat everywhere in here, there's tons of beds. Deer are drawn to these areas, so this is probably my major area that I concentrate on come shed hunting season. So get right into the thick stuff, right in where the deer are going to be living and habitating and eating and feeding and sleeping, and chances are you'll find more deer sheds.